Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Hello everyone and welcome to TEDxBatGalim Impact Now. Today's speakers include Nobel Prize candidates, world-changing leaders, and trailblazing scientists. Let's discover together how they're making an impact on the world and how you can do that too. You are joining today something really special. This is the first ever TEDx event to be held in the metaverse as well. What does it mean? You'll discover that later. I'm Ronnie Misano, founder and co-organizer of the event, and I'm one of your hosts for today. First of all, what is TEDx? In the spirit of ideas worth spreading, TED has created a program called TEDx. TEDx is a series of local, self-organized events that bring people together. A TEDx event is organized by volunteers from the local community, and just like TED events, it lacks any religious, commercial, or political agenda. Our goal is to spark conversation, connection, and community. The community is indeed the most important thing to us. We wanted this event to be a platform that connects participants through ideas. But how could we give hundreds of people all around the world the possibility to meet just as if we were all together in the same venue? And that's why we decided to hold this event in the metaverse too. The metaverse can be likened to a virtual world with real-world features. It is a broad shift in how we interact with technology. Just like in-person events, today you will have the chance to walk around the venue, meet and interact with other attendees. But don't worry, if you're more comfortable with following the event here on YouTube Live, you'll still be able to enjoy all the great talks, no metaverse attached. If you are on YouTube and want to join the metaverse venue, you can click on the link in the description to open it. And now, let's see a short video on how the platform works.
Hi, I'm Mike, your virtual guide. During this short tutorial, I'll teach you how to navigate the VII 3D Metaverse Networking environment. It's easy to navigate our environment. To do so, you'll need to use only a mouse. No keyboard is required. Simply drag the white circle that represents our joystick to the desired direction. You can participate in live sessions or recorded videos simply by coming close to a stage. To communicate and chat with other attendees, please come in proximity to them, click on them, and see the different networking options available with that attendee. We covered all the basics. We have many more cool features that we haven't covered, like public chats and reactions. Feel free to explore those on your own. I wish you a meaningful networking and great experience. Bye.
You'll be able to join the platform before, during, or after the event. If the access is blocked, it means that all the slots are taken, but feel free to try again in a few minutes. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Ilan. Ilan, the mic is yours.
Thanks, Ronnie. Hi everyone, I'm Ilan Misano, founder and co-organizer of TEDxBatGalim. Despite this event being hosted in the metaverse, TEDx events have a strong local connotation. Today we are here also to celebrate the amazing Israeli city of Haifa and its neighborhood, Bat-Galim. Being home to the largest international tech companies and world-class universities, Haifa is known for its far-reaching innovation. If you'd like to enjoy amazing people, art, heritage, culture, science, technology, history, the sea, or just amazing hummus, we really recommend visiting Haifa and Bat-Galim. Before moving on to the talks, we would like to take a minute to thank the team that stands behind TEDxBatGalim. The biggest thank you goes to our founding partner, Road2. Road2 Haifa accelerates startups through access to funding and technology. It is a dynamic ecosystem where entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and investors collaborate to create the next innovations. Road2 Haifa provides startups with exclusive opportunities through its unique industry connections. Thank you, Road2, for your key collaboration in organizing these events and helping us spread the work and ideas of our amazing speakers. Thank you to our technical sponsors, Coming Up, for your amazing contribution in the recording, editing, and experience design. Thank you to Now Branding for the marketing efforts and helping TEDxBatGalim reach so many people. Last but not least, thank you to the amazing TEDxBatGalim organizing team, which is made of extremely passionate individuals with a strong love for positive impact. Thank you to Dan, Yael, Tamar, Asaf, Itai, and Ferdi. A special thanks to Imbar Amir, our amazing speaker coach. Without each and every one of you, this event could not have happened. Now, let's move on to the real protagonists of today, our amazing speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Oren Tene. Dr. Tene is a psychiatrist, vice chair of the psychiatric division at the Tel Aviv Sourasky Medical Center. He is a brain researcher and a lecturer at Tel Aviv University Faculty of Medicine. In his research work, he studies the complex interface between psychiatry and neurology, focusing on brain mechanisms that influence human behavior. Dr. Tene, the stage is yours.
How is it, I'm often asked as a psychiatrist, that I face pain and insanity every day and not go crazy myself or become indifferent? Let me take you to a peek today in my office, closed ward C. It's 3:30 p.m. and I'm with my yoga mattress already ready for my yoga class. It's been a long week, a long day, and I really want to go. When I hear an all too familiar sound, first screams, then the alarm, all nurses to closed ward C, all nurses to closed ward C. I know what will happen next, and indeed the door is thrust open and a young 20-year-old man or boy runs toward me screaming, "You're the devil, you murdered my parents." In situations like this, I hardly have time to think. I immediately organize myself and give orders, medical orders, to sedate this fearful young man and help him. And that's what I do. Soon after, in my office, I'm again ready to go. My yoga mattress again on my shoulder, and I step outside only to find the parents of this young new patient of mine waiting outside, and they have lots of questions. What will happen to our son? What has happened to him? What did you give him? How long will this last? How long will he be hospitalized? Is this a chronic situation? I want to answer these questions. I want to help them. They need me. But I see the clock above the mother's head, and it already says 4:30. I can still make it to my yoga class. What would you do in this situation? It seems that the answer is quite easy. Well, I went to yoga. I mumbled something about having to run away and explaining everything tomorrow and ran to my yoga class. I made it on time. Half an hour later, while practicing Vrikshasana, here it is, the tree pose. Ooh, I can still do it. Half an hour later then, it strikes me. I'm a monster. How could I do this? The parents of this child need me. He's probably going to be diagnosed with schizophrenia. Their life will never be the same. His life will never be the same. Yoga now? Is it really that important? Is this what I learned medicine for? All these years? you might think I'm a monster too. But let me fast forward to a different scenario. I'm now sitting in a clinic. In front of me, a 40-year-old man who has just lost his 9-year-old daughter to a violent type of brain cancer. He's crying, and I want to cry too. I cannot stop thinking about one of my kids, who is exactly the same age. And I want to tell this man, of course you want to die. What other option is there? But then, a moment before doing so, I think, Oren, that's my name, this is not about you. It's about him. I actually place some sort of barrier between me and the pain and start talking. The next day, this father calls me. He thanks me. Turns out I helped him. Two different stories, right? Very different stories. But are they really that different? In the first, I'm a villain. In the second, a devoted therapist. But these two stories share a theme. And the theme is, when does involvement turn into over-involvement? When is detachment something cruel? And when is it necessary, even vital, for us to survive and be able to help others? It is this lesson learned in the chaotic fields of the soul that I want to share with you today. But in no way is this a lesson of psychiatry. It's a lesson that has to do with all of us. It's relevant to every relationship that has pain inside. Being us as parents, of course, lots of pain there. Being us as children, to aging parents, to spouses, to bosses, to employees, everywhere. It is here where boundaries and borders come to our rescue. And they do so in more than one way. Let me show you how. The first way requires us to answer truthfully a difficult question. Who is it that we're actually helping when we're breaking boundaries? Is it the person in front of us, or maybe ourselves? I'm no stranger to breaking boundaries with patients. I remember myself as a young psychiatrist just, learning about the power and the magic of psychotherapy. I have a new patient. He's 21 years old, and he captures my heart. His father died when he was 5. His mother, a doctor like me, works continuously to support the family. And I think immediately that I'm the answer to all of his problems. I can be the father he never had. When he asked for 2 sessions a week, of course I oblige. He needs me. I'm overwhelmed by this amazing feeling that I'm so important in someone else's life. When he's late for meetings, I give him extra time. When he wants my private phone, I give it to him. I'm needed. But then, reality knocks. It usually does in psychotherapies. And in this case, I had to go on a study leave. My midterm exams were just around the corner. I had a month off, and my boss called me into his office and tells me, Oren, you can't come to the hospital in this month. It's about you passing these exams. You can't come in even for your patient, for Michael, let's call him. I think, okay, it's only a month. I'll prepare Michael for this separation. It's a brief separation, and I try to do so, but of course it's useless because my abandonment echoes so many experiences that he had in his past. Soon after I leave, Michael is hospitalized for suicidal ideation, and the therapy never resumes. Today, I know that I was not helping Michael by breaking boundaries with him. I was helping myself. I was helping my insecurities and my feeling that I want to feel able and competent. Think about it at home. If your child throws a tantrum and you're the only one in the world who can calm them down, isn't it a great feeling? But think again. Is that what you want? That you will be the only one in the world who can calm your children so they cannot calm themselves or anybody other? I think the answer to that is no. So, the first thing borders and boundaries protect us from is from the dangerous notion that we're omnipotent, or putting it in other words, if you feel like a god, then sorry, you're doing something wrong. The second way in which boundaries and borders protect us is by their ability to reassure. Jenny is another patient of mine. I remember her being brought into the closed ward for the first time. She was all over the place, terrible, violent, paranoid state, scratching, yelling, screaming. Soon after her arrival, I went to examine her and was surprised to find her relatively calm. "What did you give her?" asked my boss. "Nothing yet," he said. He said a phrase I remember. It's the power of the walls. Later on in my career and my life, I learned that many patients like Jenny, whose life and whose world becomes chaotic and terrifying, are reassured by the structure of the closed ward. Not only of the physical structure, but also of the daily routine. It's not just our patients. Think of us during the pandemic. Indeed, external boundaries reflect inner ones and give us a sense of security. Today we live in a world without borders, we love saying, right? The sky's the limit, they tell us. You can do anything you want. It sounds fantastic, but it's actually, for our primitive selves, quite terrifying. 200 years ago, and for thousands of years before that, people knew what will happen to them, from the day they are born till the day they die. Born a farmer, grow old as a farmer, die as a farmer, for most of humanity. What do we know today about what will happen tomorrow? What do we know about what our children will do when they grow up? We don't even know how jobs and life will look like then, A world without limits and borders, it's a fantastic concept, but it's actually quite a challenging and even terrifying reality. I know that boundaries can sometimes seem cruel. When I'm sitting at my psychologist, at my therapist on the couch, and I'm crying, and she tells me, "Our time is up," I'm quite devastated. When a therapist, somebody tells him about their financial problems and he still charges the high sum at the end, how is that right? But think and answer. Would you want your therapist to sometimes give you 65 minutes and sometimes 30, 40, 50? How would you feel on the less days? Would you want your therapist to see you every week in a different time slot that's good with your calendar? Would you want them to say to you after a while, "Well, I don't think we need money anymore. Let's just talk. It's so much fun." Wouldn't that just make therapy another friendship? Would you really want that? I think the answer is no. So why is it that we think that our children want us to break boundaries with them? Why is it that we think that we want to let them sit in front of screens all day, stay up all night, not go to school if they want to, eat sweets? Speaking of sweets, my daughter is a sweet tooth. She loves candy. And we always have the same argument about how many desserts she's allowed, only one. I remember one night I was distracted and tired, and during this argument I just said to her, "Go on, have as many as you want." She looked up at me terrified and said, "Daddy, are you okay? What's wrong?" So you see, boundaries and borders protect us. They reassure us, ourselves, our children, our patients, our surroundings. They also remind us that we're not gods. But that is not all. Because the third way in which boundaries and borders help us is by enabling us to love ourselves, our surroundings, our children. Yes, also our children. The Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson, he's a very controversial figure, but listen to one of his phrases, more known phrases. He says, "Don't let your children do anything that will make you dislike them." Dislike our own kids? Is that even a possibility? Well, of course it is. And this also comes back to boundaries. If we let our children, run around, be ignorant, rude, and do whatever they want, think that we're at their disposal 24/7, we will end up resenting them. At work, if we let our employees call us at any time with any stupid question, with whatever they want, we will hate our phones, hate our employees, hate our jobs. And in the hospital, where every crisis is always so much bigger than everything that's going on in my life, If I will not know how to set the barrier and say, this is what I can do today, the rest will have to wait for tomorrow, then I will be failing as a caregiver because I will not be able to love my job and my patients who need my love. Back to yoga then. Because you hear yoga, but I hear a vacation, much needed vacation. You hear yoga, but I hear a date for two with a candlelit dinner. You hear yoga, but I hear family time, a few hours a day in which I turn off my phone, in which my employees know they cannot disturb me, in which the demanding world is just shut outside and I have time to be with my kids. By placing this barrier, by this limit, I can actually continue to love my job and do it with a lot of will and happiness, as I do. You see, immersing in the endless sea of pain in a relationship is always an option, but ironically, it's the easy option. Setting flexible barriers and boundaries that detach us from the pain and enable us to empathetically touch others is actually the right way to go around. At least that's what I think. So I invite you to do the same. Decide what is essential for you. What are the boundaries important for you at home with your kids, with your spouse, at work, with your boss, with your employees, with your parents, anywhere. Go on and choose your yoga. It will not make you a monster. It will just enable you to love others more easily. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker for today is Ophir Gatman. Ophir is a vice president and general manager in Procter & Gamble. He is also a best-selling author of the Kingdom of Eureka trilogy, world's first management book for kids. During his international career, Ophir won 7 times at the Cannes Lions Advertising Festival, and his marketing team was ranked #1 in the world in 2020. Please help me welcome Ophir on the stage.
It's 11 a.m. I'm in front of dozens of students in Tel Aviv University, and I'm in my element. The crowd is engaged, people are asking questions, some even taking notes. I've been talking for the past 90 minutes about everything I know. Management lessons, creativity, strategy. All these people have come to hear a general manager from Procter & Gamble sharing wisdom from 20 years of international experience. And frankly, I could be doing this for another 90. But I'm late for Leah, my daughter's 4th grade class. Yesterday, they asked parents to fill in for an absent teacher, and I volunteered. So I closed the talk, rush into the classroom, stand in front of the kids. In the corner, I can see Leah glowing with pride, and I flop completely. I discover I have nothing special to say to these little ones. And as it turns out, the dad right before me used to be a magician. Worst of all, I end up teaching them math. They hate it, my daughter hates it. On the way home, the car is obviously very quiet. Leah is probably wishing she discovers one day she's adopted. I'm haunted by a different thought. I volunteered because I've always felt schools don't teach kids the skills they would need in the year 2040. Schools teach kids how to read, how to write, math, and English. But they don't teach them creative thinking, problem solving, dreaming big. But today, in front of that classroom, all my adult superpowers were worth nothing in the kids' world. How come all the currency I have at work is worth nothing the minute I step home at night? I've always been a freak of management books, biographies of famous people, and creativity, even winning once the Grand Prix of advertising in Cannes. But during my first 20 years as a kid, my heroes were completely different. I was consumed by Disney, Star Wars, and Pixar characters. So why not connect the two, my childhood heroes and my adult ones, and create the world's first management book for kids? But can we really teach 9-year-olds management skills? The first problem I encountered was that adult concepts like looking at the big picture, thinking out of the box, anticipating 2 steps ahead, were too tangible for Leah. So I decided to take all those abstract things and turn them into characters. 2 steps ahead became a pink dog with its front head exactly 2 steps into the future. Out of the box is a doll that understands the world is completely different the minute she steps out of the original store box. But I also wanted Leah to take inspiration from history's greats. Greats that have one thing in common. They can all teach her to think different. So Galileo became a bat. He obviously thinks the opposite of everybody else. Leonardo the lion, every color of his mane representing a different field of expertise. Steve is an apple, and Albert is a caterpillar. We'll get back to him later. But this management book could not feel like school. Especially with kids, they smell homework from miles away. It had to become a fantasy story with good guys and bad guys. The kingdom of Eureka, the place where the things kids love most, were invented. 20 years ago, when I started my career, we would run annual performance reviews. Each of us had to write 3 things we're good at and 3 improvement areas. I hated those. No matter how well the review went, I always left the room with 3 bad things to think about. And obviously, with 0 motivation to improve the day after. We have evolved since, and our role as managers is to identify the 1 or 2 skills our people are good at and create an environment that pushes them to become great, and not spend time on their flaws. We have evolved since, and our role as managers is to identify the 1 or 2 skills our people are good at and create an environment that pushes them to become great, instead of spending and wasting their time on their flaws. Remember Albert? Surprisingly, he has the same problem. Albert is a caterpillar, but he's not your ordinary caterpillar. He's a patent clerk. Yes, actually the best in the whole wide world. Albert is so good at his job that he can attend to 4 people at once. Einstein, too, in real life, spent 7 very long years in the Swiss patent office. You know, kids, Albert gazed with his big black eyes. Sometimes I think I could come up with an important invention myself and not just write other people's ideas. Maybe one day I'll even become someone important. Leah nodded. I love science class because I get to experiment with different things. There I feel like a champ. But I don't get very good grades in other subjects. The truth is, Albert whispered as if revealing a secret, is that every child is a genius. But if a fish is tested in school by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. Because fish are geniuses at swimming. Leah smiled. Exactly, Albert continued. All your life, keep asking yourselves 2 questions. The first, what do I do best? The second, what do I most love doing? The day the answer to those 2 questions is exactly the same is the day you have found your genius. Let's remember that the next time our kids bring home a report card. Children are always intrigued by puzzles and riddles. Can we use them to teach skills like creativity? Let's try one. It's going to be fun. Which animal is the odd one out? Dolphin, right? Excellent. It's red. Let's move on. TED is a short format. But wait, maybe we should all think like an octopus. Did you know that octopuses have 9 brains? In fact, each hand has a brain of its own. So when mom octopus asks baby octopus, what does she want to do? She doesn't have only one answer. She has at least 8. On one hand, she wants to play soccer. On the other hand, eat pizza. On the third hand, read a book. And this is what creativity means. Thinking like an octopus. Providing as many correct answers to the same problem. I've asked this riddle in over 200 classes, and the Israeli record for 3rd graders stands at 54 correct answers. What's mind-opening is that the kids that usually participate in class, in this case, give the most ordinary and less creative answers. The fish is upside down, the rabbit is a land animal. It's usually when the class is stuck at 8 answers, magic happens. A shy girl that never participates in class raises her hand and whispers the fish because it only has 4 letters. She just transported the collective creativity of the class to a whole new dimension, how these animals are spelled. And her friends, now out of their boxes, follow quickly up with 10 more spelling answers. Then when the class is stuck again, a kid will be the first one to notice the shells in the back. They were there the whole time, and the fish is the only one not stepping out of bounds. My favorite answer of all time, the dolphin, because it's the only pet my parents will never allow me to have. The mere fact I tell the class up front that the record is 54 correct answers will usually lead them to double the number of answers they end up with. Throughout history, knowledge, profession, and craft was passed from father to son, from mother to daughter. But in the year 2040, we have no idea what jobs our kids will have. Most likely, they'll be switching between 2 to 3 careers when they grow up. So how do we as parents prepare them for this unexpected future? Teach them skills. Or in very simple words, just start telling them today all about your adult stuff. Try tonight when you get back home. Pick one word of wisdom you told a colleague at work and translate it into their world. Next time you go to the movies, try to inspire them. Tell them that Disney was once a real person named Walt. That's before he became an amusement park. They will be amazed. And while the entire world saw a mouse, screamed, and jumped on a chair, Walt saw Mickey Mouse. Trust me, they will listen. Even Leah, who since then invited her old man 3 more times to class. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Ben Maoz. Dr. Maoz is a faculty member at the Segoul School of Neuroscience and the Department of Biomedical Engineering at Tel Aviv University. Dr. Maoz is using tissue engineering to develop organ-on-a-chip platforms for studying human-relevant physiology and personalized medicine. Dr. Maoz, the stage is yours.
Have you ever thought about how good are we in curing disease? Well, actually, we are really bad at it. How bad? Well, to date, we know about 70,000 diseases out there, but actually we can cure less than 1%. But don't worry, we are constantly trying. But we're not just trying like this, that we're all happy and joyful. We are trying more something like this, that it's a really long and frustrating process. In the past 70 years, we try every year thousands of different drugs, but annually we are successful in only 25 drugs that are approved by the FDA. Because it takes a lot of time and a lot of money to develop a drug. How much time? About 20 years. And how much money? About $2 billion. Well, so what is the $2 billion question? That what hasn't changed in the drug development in the past 70 years? Well, we know the technology changed. We know that we were able to land in the moon in the past 70 years. We know that we developed sophisticated electric cars. Our knowledge also changed significantly. We characterize the human genome. We can do quantum computing. So what haven't changed? The answer is the drug development process itself. At the end of the day, every drug that is being tested on humans is being first tested on animals. And although there are many, many similarities, we have similar organs, we have similar physiology, we can even share a lot of the same DNA with animals, for example. We share about 95% of the DNA with rodents. But at the end of the day, between 60 to 90% of the drugs that actually pass animal trials fail in human clinical trials. Because at the end of the day, most of the humans are not rodents. So, in order to make it a successful process, what do we need? Well, we need human models, but we don't have many volunteers, right? So, $2 billion question is, can we create a human model that is not a human being? The answer is yes. Yes, we can, and the way we do it is by using this novel concept known as organs on a chip. Organs on a chip is a way that we use actually tissue engineering to mimic the organ functionality in a Lego-like device. For example, the idea is that we have a kidney. The kidney, at the end of the day, is a filter. So what we do, we take human kidney cells and we create a filter out of this. And then we put this inside this plastic USB stick-like device, what you actually see here behind me. And we call it a kidney on a chip. I will give you another example. The heart. The heart roughly is a pump. So imagine we take human heart cells and we create something that contracts like a pump. And we put this inside this Lego-like chip, and then we will call it a heart on a chip. And this is basically what you can see behind me. You can see these heart cells that contract like a real heart. And we can do it for many different organs. But at the end of the day, we know that an organ doesn't have only one functionality. An organ can be very complex. For example, the lungs, not just gas exchanger. We know, for example, it has an immune response. We know it controls the temperature. We know it can help to create sound. It has a complex physiology. It has complex anatomy. And how we can mimic all these different functionalities and characteristics inside this Lego chip. So the first organ that was developed by Dan Hu and Don Imberg at the Visa Institute, and was basically this lung on a chip. These chips can be very sophisticated. You can have multiple cells inside. As you can see here, you have the lung cells, the endothelial cells separated by a membrane. These chips can be elastic, so we can actually mimic the movement of the lung. We can bring air on one side. We can bring blood at the other side. And we can even do more sophisticated things, such as to bring immune cells and bacteria and to see the immune response of the body inside these chips. But when this project started about 10 years ago, there were individual chips. And when I saw this new technology, I said to myself, wow, we definitely need to try to integrate them to make it as a human, small human on a chip. So I joined to this team basically to lead this integration of multi-chips by creating this mini human on a chip. And you can imagine that this human on a chip is like a Lego. You have the heart on a chip and the brain on a chip and the gut on a chip, and you can start linking them together to create this mini me on a chip. And I would like to give you an example how such a system enables us to look at the systematic effect, how the human body responds to different conditions. And I will give you an example with the organ that is rarely used. In this case, I would like to give you an example on the brain. So what you see here is an amazing video that was taken by the group of Ed Boyden at MIT. And you can see here an image of a rodent's brain. All the green lines that you see are actually neurons inside the brain. You can see the complexity. You can see the amazing structure. You can see the amount of cells that you have inside. But what I would like that you will keep in mind is that what you saw here is half of a mouse brain, half of what you see here at the back. And for most of us, the human brain looks something like this. A lot bigger, a lot more complex, and the human brain at the end of the day has a unique structure, unique functionality, and also very unique with its disease. For example, we have Alzheimer, Parkinson, and many other diseases that do not occur in rodents. We ask many rodents if they have Alzheimer, and none of them remember the answer. So in order to mimic this complex organ, what we do is we look at the anatomy of the brain. And here you can see we have blood vessels, we have the brain cells, the neurons, and we try to use the chips to mimic this complex system. And as you can see by the image, there is a huge difference between these plastic chips and this anatomical system. So how can I claim that we can use such chips to mimic such a complex system? So actually what we do, we can take these chips and we can link them, like I showed you previously with the Lego, and we can actually see the different interactions that you have inside the brain, the blood vessels and the neurons and different things. And we can actually use the system to identify and to check, for example, how toxicants affect the brain, how disease and bacteria affect the brain, and how drugs affect the brain. But now that I show you how we can break the brain by using the chips, let me show you how actually we can breaking bad using the chips. And what we can actually do is to see the effect of methamphetamine, drugs on the brain, similar to the TV show Breaking Bad. So here you can see an image of cells. The cells that you can see at the bottom that look like a carpet are basically the blood vessels, and the cells that you see on the right are the neurons, the cells of the brain. What we can do is to bring methamphetamine, crystal meth, to the system, and you can see how suddenly the blood vessels are erupted. They look really bad, actually, and you can see suddenly how some junk and toxicants go into the neurons. So the take-home message of this is that, yes, we can use the system to learn about drugs, but more importantly, that you shouldn't take drugs because it is messing up your brain. Okay, so and now that we talked about some ideas how you can tackle the challenge of drug development, I would like that you will keep in mind that the problems in drug development do not stop here. It's true that there are significant differences between animals and human beings, but also there are significant differences among humans themselves. So just to give you an idea about the statistic is that at a given time, 75% of the people take medications that are not optimal to their condition. Moreover, ideally, we would like to have a platform that will enable us to have a personalized medicine, that each one of us will be able to get the medicine that is best for his or her condition. And to tackle this, what we can do, and we do today in our labs, is to take a sample from someone's skin and to transform these skin cells to be any type of cells of the human body. And by this, we can create a specific tissue which contains your own DNA and to create your own personalized medicine. And imagine we integrate this with the previous technology. Like this, we can create actually a mini-me on a chip that will integrate our different organs with the different chips with our own DNA and our own specific physiology. We can then test and identify drugs for different diseases, right? We can study corona, how it is affecting our own body. We can study neurodegenerative disease. We can study cancer. We can study bowel disease, and many, many more. But I would like to show you just a small example of what we can actually do in the lab regarding to neurodegenerative disease. So what we do is we take a biopsy from a Parkinson patient. We transform these skin cells to be brain cells, neurons, and we can actually measure their electrical activity. This electrical activity that you see here is similar to the electrical activity that is actually measured with EEG. So we can learn in a dish in our lab things that are similar to where you go to the clinic and you will do EEG. But remember, keep in mind that we don't have one cell or one sample. We can do multiple. We can do many of them. And for each one of them, we can start to do drug screening. So now we can take your own mini brain and to give drug A. If it doesn't work, we give drug B. If it doesn't work, we give drug C, etc. And you can see the Lego again. We can create drug screening for your own disease. And by this, you will have your own personalized medicine. This will actually minimize the time you need to wait for curing your disease. And at the end of the day, by this, we hope to create the future of medicine, that you will go to the doctor, you will take a biopsy of your skin, you will create your mini-me on a chip, we will do drug screening, and at the end of the day, you will have your own personalized medicine. And we hope that with this, we can take this poor statistic from 1% to much, much higher, and to change the way we do medicine today. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sarah Tankman. Sarah is the founder and CEO of the Bria Foundation, an organization that is dedicated to improving women's health in Israel and strives to change the way women are treated by the medical system. The Bria Foundation accomplishes this through advocacy, research, and raising awareness. Please help me welcome Sarah on the stage.
Becoming a mother, something many women take for granted, didn't come easy to me. After quite a few cycles of IVF, in vitro fertilization, I was finally pregnant. And to my surprise, not one, but 2 heartbeats appeared on the sonogram. I was pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl. When I was 18 weeks pregnant, my doctor suggested I go on bed rest. I hated the idea, but of course I said yes, spending my days lying down and preparing for twins. A few weeks later, I felt a sudden pain in my back. I assumed it was nothing, but when I felt it once more, I decided to go get examined just to be on the safe side. I called my husband. I told him, listen, it's probably nothing, but I'm going to go get examined just in case. On the way, the pain became more and more severe, and by the time I reached the clinic, I knew without a doubt that something in my body was very wrong. I walked up to the receptionist and I told her, "I'm in pain, I need to see the doctor now." She said, "Honey, there's a line, wait your turn," which I did or tried to do, since by that time, standing, sitting, everything was too painful. I could barely breathe. When it was my turn, I walked into the doctor crying, and I said, "Something's very wrong, please help me." He did an ultrasound and told me, "Everything looks fine. Sometimes pregnant women have psychosomatic contractions. You just need to relax, take a breath, drink a glass of water, and go home." But by that time, I knew this wasn't in my head, and I knew I had to get to a hospital as soon as possible. So I told this to the doctor, and I asked if they had an ambulance on call or any other way to help me, only to be told once again, "Everything's fine, relax, calm down." So I somehow got to the hospital on my own. I walked to the street, stopping every few minutes to breathe through the pain. I caught a taxi, one I didn't pay for till this day. And when I reached the hospital, I saw a doctor fairly quickly, who told me I was in labor. I remember asking, "Okay, so what do we do? How do we stop it?" And she said, "We don't know how to stop labor at this point. This is a one-way ticket. You're going to give birth, and the babies won't survive." I remember being wheeled past a line of women waiting their turn to go to the delivery room. Some of them congratulated me, Mazal Tov, as I passed them. Coming home after stillbirth is a very surreal experience. There was no burial, no grave, no event or ceremony acknowledging that anything significant had happened. At that time in Israel, parents weren't allowed to participate in the burial of stillborn babies, so it was really as if to the world, nothing had happened. No birth, no death. Invisible grief for invisible babies. I had an urgent need to meet other women who had gone through similar experiences, almost as a way of acknowledging that I wasn't going crazy and something had happened. And the more I met women, the more I began to realize that maybe this wasn't me overreacting. Maybe this was society ignoring a significant event in the life of many women and men, similar to other events attended until just recently to be dismissed, left in the darkness to be dealt with as a private matter, but not a public one. But I couldn't go on as if nothing had happened. Something had changed in me, even if it was invisible. I started studying gender studies, and I began to understand that what I had gone through that day in the clinic, that was also rooted in social context. I found evidence in research that when women and men complain about the same symptoms, women have a higher chance of being dismissed. One research, for example, found that when women and men come to the emergency room with abdominal pain, men receive attention 15 minutes faster than women. This isn't due to conscious bias. I don't think the doctors saw me that day and said, "She's a woman, therefore she's hysterical," but just due to the fact that doctors are human beings. And like all of us, we grow up in a world that associates women with certain traits, such as being emotional, overreacting, being complainers, hysterical. But when it comes to medicine, unconscious bias can literally kill. Understanding something that I went through is actually a social problem can be liberating, because I now know there's nothing I could have done, even if I had screamed at the top of my lungs. I may have been ignored because women's complaints about pain tend to be dismissed. The more I dove into the gender aspects of medicine, the more I realized how many medical experiences women go through are rooted in social context. Women with endometriosis, a disease that causes severe pain, often wait an average of 5 to 10 years before being diagnosed. This isn't only a personal tragedy for many. This is a disease that affects 1 in 10 women and has been under-researched and underfunded for far too long. Women coping with sleeping disorders or mood swings are often unaware that their symptoms could be connected to hormonal changes rooted, for example, in contraceptives or menopause. Once again, there's a lack of awareness, lack of funding, lack of research on such fundamental issues. Our bodies have historically literally been excluded from research. It was like looking at my body in a whole new way, and I knew I had to do something, but I had no idea what. So I started working with women going through fertility treatments, I started meeting organizations mapping out the ecosystem in Israel. And I met great organizations, mostly focused on empowering women with knowledge so that they can make better decisions regarding their bodies. And while this is so important, what was missing was policy change. Because if this is a social problem, we need to change the system. That's when I founded the Bria Foundation. Our goal is to systematically change the way women receive healthcare through lobby, through research, and through funding. The word Bria has two meanings in Hebrew. It means both healthy in the feminine form, and it also means creation, because we embody the ability of creation. So I embarked on my new creation, and I had no idea where it would take me. When I first started, I created a Facebook page and spontaneously started receiving messages from women about their medical experiences. After a short while, it became evident that one of the topics to repeat themselves, story after story, were gynecological examinations. And I quickly learned that at that time in Israel, there was no policy, no protocol on the matter. So, for anyone who hasn't had a gynecological examination in the past few years, let me paint a picture of, say, a teenage girl going into her first exam. She's probably been told her whole life to close her legs and guard her body. Then she walks into a fluorescent-lit clinic and is told to lie down and spread her legs. Maybe she'll wonder what to do with her underwear. Maybe she'll hold it in her hand out of sheer embarrassment. Maybe she'll be covered, maybe not. Then the doctor will walk in, many times a man. He could be the first man she's ever been physically exposed to. He'll sit down with his head in between her legs, and then comes the order. Relax, because if you don't, it will hurt. I can't think of anything more relaxing. So what can we do to make the situation a little less uncomfortable for women? I wanted to raise women's voices, so I thought, let's ask women. Created a simple questionnaire, uploaded it to Facebook, and within a day, over 1,000 women participated. Within a week or two, 6,500 women participated, making it the biggest survey ever done in the world on the matter. It was almost as if women were waiting to be asked. For many of them, it was the first time they ever voiced an opinion or realized they had a say. So, what can we learn from 6,500 women? 50% of the women who participated find gynecological examinations embarrassing. A third find them physically painful, and 20%, 1 in 5, find gynecological examinations traumatic. As a result, women tend to change doctors quite often. The most common reason women quoted for changing doctors was, "I felt uncomfortable in my last exam." What kind of things can make women feel uncomfortable? We asked women if they ever received a comment or a conversation that made them uncomfortable, and we analyzed all the quotes. Things like, "You're a pretty girl. You should be on birth control." Or, "It's taking you too long to get ready. This isn't a strip club." Or, "Why didn't you shave? With that amount of hair, no man will ever have you." 50% of the quotes had to do with women's physical appearance, whether compliments or not. In the next part of the survey, we asked women what was most important to them. What changes did they want to see? The highest rated elements all had to do with communication between them and the doctor, receiving an explanation, having time for questions, and being warned before every step of the way. Second were things that have to do with privacy, having a private area to get undressed, being covered, and having a curtain around the bed. Third were things that had to do with comfort, like having a designated place to put my underwear, being able to choose my own position, or being able to insert the device, speculum or ultrasound, on my own. When we analyzed the data, our goal was to translate women's experiences into clear, practical recommendations that could easily be implemented in the medical system. And in that regard, our recommendations are quite simple. Let's give women as much control as possible. Make sure they understand what's going on, make sure there are no surprises, and give them as many choices and options as possible. Our recommendations became official policy in Israel. The Gynecological Union, the Ministry of Health, and all the big HMOs adopted our recommendations, creating for the first time official policy in Israel. The next step, now that policy had changed, was to make sure women were aware of their rights. So we created what we call the Gynecological Treaty, giving women simple information about what's about to happen and what their rights are. Here's a picture from Sheba Medical Center, the biggest hospital in Israel, where women coming to the ER receive our treaty. Here's the way the treaty looks in Maccabi, the second biggest HMO in Israel, where every gynecologist is required to hang our treaty in their clinic. We're now working with amazing doctors and with the Gynecological Union to create training for doctors on how to communicate in intimate examinations, especially in cases where there may be a history of sexual trauma or other complex issues. Doctors need tools. They need support. Ever since founding the Bria Foundation, we've been lobbying and changing policy and funding projects on a large range of issues. We've supported, for example, the creation of unique clinics for women going through pregnancy loss, training and better services for women with sexual trauma, digital innovative services in mental health and postpartum depression. It's like every time I open a door, I discover 10 more doors, more issues that need to be changed. And my goal in the future, through collaborations, is to work on a global level because, unfortunately, these problems aren't unique to Israel. Back to my personal story. I'm now a mother of 2 amazing girls who I hope will never feel they're invisible, silenced. And to get to that point by the time they grow up, governments and medical establishments around the world have to take it upon themselves to change the way women receive health care. And what could we do as patients? If there's one thing I've learned in the Bria Foundation, it's to never assume that something can't be changed. When I published the survey, I received dozens of messages from women saying things like, "I can't believe I never asked to be covered. It never crossed my mind." Because we tend to take things for granted, and we assume this is the way it's done. 1 million women have gone through it before me, and I should just be quiet and get over with it. But the truth is that we have a say in the way our bodies are treated. And when we open our mouth and create a conversation, this is better for patients, for doctors, and for the medical outcome. So the next time you go get examined or go get a blood test, think about what would be best for you. Maybe you want to receive a full explanation every step. Or maybe you just want complete silence and to listen to music until it's over. You know your body best. You have a say. You always have a say. So I'll end with a sentence that feminist women have said way before me. Let's have nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Roy Ben-Tolila. Roy is the founder and CEO of Roim Leadership Development. He was seriously injured while serving as an officer in an elite army unit. Today, he helps leaders and organizations turn crises into opportunities. Please help me welcome Roy on the stage.
I will never forget my 23rd birthday. For my parents, my siblings, my girlfriend back then, and my friends, it was the happiest birthday of their life. A week earlier, I had been seriously injured. At those time, I was a commander in an elite unit, and I was shot during an operation I was leading. For an entire week, I was sedated and kept alive on a ventilator. They had been prepared by a team of doctors that these were my last hours, and that I was going to die any moment. But I'm here and I'm alive. For them, I was reborn. For me, the moment of my awakening was the saddest moment in my life. Before my injury, I stood 6 feet tall. I was leader in an elite military unit. I had life full of meaning. And here I was, awake and alive, but paralyzed. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. My upper body hurt a lot, and I couldn't feel my lower body at all. I could see my toes at the end of the bed. I tried to move them, but they didn't seem like they belonged to me anymore. I had lost 20 kilos in 1 week. With all the obvious joy at me being alive, no one was able to look into my eyes. I saw everyone try to find a different point to look at. One after the other, my friend dropped by to see me. They all said something along the lines like, "Whoa bro, great view." After 5 or so visitors, I realized that I wasn't seeing what they were seeing. At some point, my brother took the mirror off the wall to show me what they were all talking about. A stunning view of the sea, ships unloading their goods, people going for a swim in the middle of the week. They could see the sea. All I could see was a wall. My friends who came to visit me had suddenly lost their words. The best way out of a situation like that is to give someone a hug. But how do you hug a person lying injured in the bed? To this day, people don't know whether to hug me or not. That morning, on the 9th floor of Rambam Hospital, my doctor told me that I would never walk again. That same day, a friend came to visit me, and he told me that he was giving me 2 months to prepare myself to the journey. Which journey? I asked him. We are going to do the 21 days Kilimanjaro trek. What are you talking about? Roy, you are the one that always says, there's no such things as can't. This sentence had been my slogan when I was a commander. For months following my injury, I tried to remind myself of it. I just wanted to feel normal again. I wanted to go out with Maya, my girlfriend back then, to drink coffee together as we used to do. I will never forget the first time in the coffee shop together after the injury. I am in the wheelchair and she is next to me, all 5'7" of her. I saw 2 people looking at us, and I'm convinced they asked themselves, what is this beautiful lady doing with that poor guy? The waitress turned to her and asked her, does he want to eat? Does he want to sit? She speak about me over my head in the third person. Hello, I'm here, and by the way, if you hadn't noticed, I'm already sitting. Finally, we were seated, and then I needed to go to the bathroom. We spent half an hour to look for an accessible bathroom. Wow, I just really needed a hug. But how exactly do you hug a person sitting in a wheelchair? I understood then that I had life before all of this, one full of meaning, that I had looked out from the height of 6 feet. But now, there was this new life, a miserable life that I was looking out on from the height of my wheelchair. Probably in this awful life, I won't ever get a normal job, and I probably won't ever become a father, and it's obviously only a matter of time before Maya leaves me. What I'm trying to solve my problems with the same solutions over and over, I found myself drawn into an endless cycle of frustration. Throughout my life, the thing that always calmed me down was playing basketball. I knew that I have to find a way out of my pain. After a few months in the hospital, I found myself, in the first time in my new life, once again in the basketball court. It's hard to shoot when you have 0 abdominal muscles and your right hand is half paralyzed. But I remind myself over and over that there's no such things as can't. I found myself continuing to try to score with all my might. After about 50 attempts, all my strength was gone. The ball touched the lower edge of the hoop, but I had no juice left. I was defeated. Maybe there is someone who just can't? It hit me suddenly, in front of that basket, the power struggle of my new life. The basket was at the same height it had always been. I was the one who had suddenly gotten shorter. In the 6 months I was hospitalized, the psychologist has told me that it was possible to both work and to be in a wheelchair, to be a father and to be in a wheelchair, but I didn't believe her. She talked a lot. And I'd just be thinking, yeah, what does she know? She's healthy. She's probably such a liar. I always ask the same question. So Tell me, Roy, when was that moment then you got back up on your feet? Well, it's a pretty dumb question to be asking in my opinion, but I do think it's a deep one. We all used to see that one moment in the movies when the hero beats all the odds and return home larger than life. Rehabilitation, it's a long, slow, boring, and ongoing journey. There are problems in life that cannot be solved in one moment. 6 months after my injury, one of the doctors of the rehabilitation department took me to see a wheelchair basketball game. For the first time, I was expecting to see sad and depressed-looking people. But to my surprise, what I saw there changed the way I understood problems in my life. It was a moment that changed the course of my life. I saw a player taking off his buttered-down work shirt and putting on his game jersey. So I realized that I too might be able to work one day, work and play. I saw people, some of whom were paralyzed like me, some of them were amputees, but some of them were not disabled at all. I saw a young healthy guy and I asked myself, why would this healthy guy choose to sit on a wheelchair? Then I hear him shoot in the direction of another player, "Dad, why didn't you pass me? I was free." And then I realized, for the first time, that these are father and children playing together. To give you just a small glimpse into the game, the energy there was crazy. The field was the same field, the rules are even quite similar. In wheelchair basketball, each player receives different scores based on his ability. The coach puts together a team of 5 players, which equals together 14 points. I'm paralyzed in my lower body, so I'm considered to be a player with a severe limitation. Since I have no abdominal muscles, I'm forced to stabilize myself, I'm sitting in a lower chair than the others. I'm considered as 1-point player. When a player is less limited, he got a higher score. So, for example, a player who has his leg amputees below the knees, he will consider a 4-point. On this court, the more disabled you are, the higher value is to your team. You are suddenly more profitable to the coach and to your team. In order to win this game, you have to shake off all you know and surrender to new principles. The team that will win this game is the team whose members dedicate themselves for their teammates and strive to leverage their relative advantage that each player has. This game I had always loved changed the way I saw myself. In the beginning, I tried to be the leading scorer of the team. However, with the most severe limitation, it was hard for me to shoot. It took me a while to understand that the measure of this game, it's not how much you score, but how much you influence your team when you are on the court. Every time I tried to be the scorer of the team, I ended up on the bench, but every time I blocked another player or passed or saved, I won minutes of playing. Although I played the most minutes in the Israeli national team, I never scored the most points in any game. Even on this court, as in life, I am considerable disadvantage compared to the other. 4 months, when Maya, who at this point was my wife, was pregnant with our first, there was one question that drove me crazy. What kind of parent would I be if I couldn't even pick my daughter up from the floor and change her diaper? Since I don't have abs, if I bend forwards without holding on to something, I just fall forward. On one game, one of the players heard my question and answered me with a poker face. What's the problem? Pick her up from the floor like a cat pick up her kittens. For me, they were unofficial support group for the big things in life, but also for the small but not less important things. Let's continue with the parenting issue. Almost every parent knows the moment will come when one of their children overtakes them in height. Usually it's happened at the age of 16. For me, it's happened at the age of 6. Have you ever tried to speak with authority with someone who is taller than you? This reality requires you to speak differently. Leadership truly can be collaborative rather than with authority. The number of my son's basketball jersey is 34. It is a combination between Steph Curry, who is a famous NBA question, whose number is 30, and 4, which is my number. For him, we are both inspiring athletes. He's still debating whether he wants to play in the NBA with Steph Curry or to play with me in the Israeli national team. There are problems in life that cannot be solved. We have not yet found the medical solution to stand back on our feet. So it is true, we are all programmed to look at difficulties in life in a certain way, of 6 foot, that all might look complicated. But this court has taught me that what looks like a problem on one court may actually be a solution on another, both in basketball and in life. The challenge is to find the right court to play, and especially the right people to play with. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Denise Bar Aaron. Denise is the president and CEO of Make-A-Wish Israel. Together with her husband Avi, in 1996 she co-founded Make-A-Wish in her brother David's name. Denise was the owner and president of BTC International, a buying agency in Israel that represents the top US firms that wish to export goods out of Israel. Denise, the stage is yours.
When I was 7 years old, I had the most beautiful tree in my backyard. It was big, and I'd go there when I was happy, when I was sad, when I was celebrating something. And one day, I realized that there was a big hole in the center of the trunk that led to the bottom. That same night, I had the most beautiful dream. I dreamt that my tree was a magical candy tree. When I woke up, I ran to the tree as fast as I could. I put hard candy in the center of the tree, and then whenever I wanted, I would tap on the tree and candy would fall into my little 7-year-old hands. I realized at that moment that I had made my own dream come true, and that I had made the impossible possible. My brother David loved making dreams and wishes come true, but mainly for others. You could either find him tutoring children in a school or at the local soup kitchen. I would say to him all the time, David, what is your dream? What do you wish for? And he said, I want to go to India. I said, what's stopping you? And he said, I'll go when I finish my master's degree. David was 28 years old, and I was 31 while he was doing his master's degree, when he received notice from the doctors that he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. Exactly 1 year and 4 months later, David died. In David's memory, my husband Avi and I started the Make-A-Wish Foundation, granting wishes to children with critical illnesses in Israel. Since our inception, we have granted 5,300 wishes. Wishes that are changing lives. The thousands of people that we have touched are not just the children, it's their parents, their caregivers, and even their communities. Today, I would like to take you with me on a journey through the wish stories of these very courageous children, of how to capture your one true wish, what the essence of a dream is, how to make the impossible possible, and how to trust the spark in your eyes, and finally, how to turn sorrow into joy. When we began, the doctors and the social workers said, how can you go into the hospital and ask these children their greatest wish? It's a very dangerous proposition. What if you can't make the wish come true? They are in the most vulnerable state of their lives. We don't think it's a good idea. But we told them, we knew that on the other side of the world, magic was happening. When a wish was coming true for a child, their one true wish, they were receiving great hope, strength, and joy to fight their illness. And that is how we knew. One of our first wishes was of a boy named Yoni Dotan. Yoni Dotan was 16 at the time. And when we went to him and asked him what his greatest wish was, without hesitation, he said, I want to meet the President of the United States, Bill Clinton. We thought that was great. I said, Yoni, what gift will you bring the President? And he said, I am clueless. I have no idea. And I said, let's do something funny and creative. How about you give him a T-shirt that says, I met Yoni Dotan. We laughed and he loved it, but so did the President. Fast forward 2 weeks later, in the Oval Office, when he handed that shirt to President Clinton, he loved it. His 7 minutes that was allotted to him turned into 20. And he said, Mr. President, I have one more wish. Will you wear the T-shirt? And the President said, you have my word. 2 weeks later, in the Washington Post, Herald Tribune, and USA Today, the President was actually wearing the shirt that said, I met Yoni Dotan. And the caption underneath read, who is Yoni Dotan? And under that it said, a wish child from Make-A-Wish Israel. This wish gave us recognition, trust, and validity. It put us on the map. Because in the beginning, the doctors and social workers were extremely worried that we would interview and ask children what their greatest wish was, especially when they were sick. I'd like to fast forward thousands of wishes later. I kept hearing that a wish had enormous impact on the children's lives from so many of the children and their families. But I had to be sure. I wanted to do research. So I asked a dear friend, Dr. Tal Ben-Shachar, if he would. And he said, absolutely. And together with Professor Anat Shoshani, they did scientific research on the impact of a wish. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Tal Ben-Shachar.
You know, I attended a few meetings of Make-A-Wish, and I was really struck by the kind of work that they did. And I asked Denise, so how can we help at Meitiv Center? And she said, I want to do research. And when she first said that, I must say that my team and I, we were concerned. We were concerned that what if the research shows that it doesn't work, or doesn't work as well as they think? And yet they wanted to go ahead, which takes courage and, of course, a great deal of honesty and integrity. So we did the research, and we were amazed. What we did was we took over 60 kids, half of them in the control group, the other half were waiting for their wish. And we looked at physiological as well as psychological measures. And on every variable, every parameter, we saw improvement. And when we looked at the research, at the results, we asked ourselves, why? How does it work so well? And the answer, we believe, lies in the fact that participants exercise a different muscle than the one they're used to. They exercise the muscle of impossibility. Because to see Messi or to meet Clinton, or for some kids to get an iPhone, that's in the realm of the impossible. And yet, when they actually get that, when they fulfill that wish, it becomes possible. Now, once they have turned one impossibility into a possibility, why not do it elsewhere? Why not also do it when it comes to the medical condition that they are treating? Looking at this research, it makes me reconnect to why I do what I do. This particular project, the Make-A-Wish approach, is changing lives.
This research was published in medical journals, translated into 7 languages, and is used all over the world. It was remarkable for Make-A-Wish. So how do we capture a wish? Well, we get to know the child as well as we can. We ask them what their favorite food is, their favorite color, what movies and TV shows they like, what music do they listen to, whatever we can to really get to know who they are And then we say, if money was no issue, what would you want to buy? And for the little ones, if you had a magic carpet, where would you fly? And then, my favorite question of all, what was the best day of your life? Because we want to make it better. And then we ask them 4 questions. What I would like to do today is do this with all of you. I would like to ask you these questions in order for you to capture your own wishes. If you could be anything in the world, who would you want to be, even for a day? If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? If you could have anything, material, what would that be? And if you could meet anyone, who would you want to meet? These are the 4 questions that are asked all the time with the Make-A-Wish children. The next challenge for us was to find out if this was truly their wish. And the reason I say that is because there were children that said to us, I would like a jacuzzi in my backyard, or I would like a washing machine. We looked at them and we saw there was no spark in their eyes. And then there was a child that said, I want to be a princess. And then the father said, last night we discussed perhaps all going together to Las Vegas, but we did not see the spark in their eyes. We know that when a child says their one true wish, their eyes sparkle. And that is exactly how we knew that Israel's wish to have an air conditioning was his true wish. Because not only did he want an air conditioning, he explained to us why. He said that when he comes home from chemotherapy and his treatments, the only relief he has is putting his head on the cold tiles to get relief. Now, what happens if there is a spark, but the wish is impossible? Then what do? We get as close to the wish as possible, the essence of a wish. So when Dan said he wanted to be an astronaut and go to the moon, we sent him to the Space Center in Houston. We fit him in a uniform. He was in the simulator, and then he had lunch with astronauts. Dan said this was the best day of his life. And Emily? Emily was too sick to go to Paris. Her dream was to go to Paris and to cook with pastry chefs. So what we did was we brought Paris to her. We had macaroon chefs come to her home and teach her how to make macaroons. And then a caricature artist make caricatures of her and her family while French music was playing in the background. So I ask you, is it dangerous for us to dream? I think the exact opposite. Perhaps it's much more dangerous for us not to dream. Because if we learn today that the essence of the dream is just as powerful as the dream itself, then we should all dream. Because ultimately, when we dream, we are looking for the feeling the dream will give us, and that is happiness. Today, after granting over 5,000 wishes, what I know for sure is that giving is the greatest gift in the world. That we all have the muscle of impossibility, like Tal said. That each of us can find our greatest dream through the 4 Make-A-Wish categories. That the essence of the dream can also bring you great joy. And that we absolutely do not have all the time in the world. A few years ago, I was asked to speak at a conference in India, and I was thrilled. I packed my brother's shirt in my suitcase. When I stood up to speak, instead of wearing a blazer, I wore his shirt. I felt his essence, completely felt his essence in every bone of my body. And I almost heard him whisper to me, "Sis, we did good. We made so many wishes come true." If I can leave you with one thing today, I'd like you all to remember that we were born to fulfill our dreams. So don't wait another day to fulfill yours. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Stas Zaslavsky. Stas is an experienced digital marketer. serial entrepreneur, founder of a multi-award-winning startup in the tech event space, and a B2B metaverse pioneer evangelist. Please help me welcome Stas to the stage.
Do you remember the following sound? Not ringing a bell? What about this one? This one should definitely ring familiar. I'm sure you recognized all of them, or some of them. The first two were the sounds of the first instant messaging app, ICQ, and the last one was of a telecommunication app, Skype. ICQ takes me back to high school and to one of my first steps on the internet. Let's continue on a memory journey lane. Do you remember the first time you Googled something or your first Facebook post? Even if you don't remember the exact moment. I'm sure that looking from a time perspective, you will agree that both of them had profoundly affected your lives. My name is Stas Zaslavsky. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a digital marketer with 15 years of experience. And today I want to speak with you about how the internet revolution has affected our lives and how you can benefit of being an early adopter. To leverage the opportunities and benefits of being an early adopter, you must nail the timing. To illustrate this, let's view an example of housing market of Israel. Investing in an average four-room apartment in 1978 in today's money would cost approximately $60,000. Back then, many had doubted that housing investment was safe and smart. Today, such apartment will be valued at more than $600,000. Now that the opportunity to gain in such margins is already gone, it's clear that investing in housing was a smart and brilliant move back then. The same and even more applies to digital breakthroughs. Let's take social media giant, Facebook, or as it's now called Meta. In early 2004, Facebook had about 1 million active users per month. By 2008, the year I've joined, there were about 100 million. And today, there are 2.9 billion active users per month. That are 57% of total internet users and 37% of world population. The early adopters of Facebook could leverage the platform to build their businesses, acquire a well-sought marketing skills, and get a well-paid jobs, or become influencers with millions of followers. I know it personally, as I have established a business page for one of my businesses in 2013, which was early by Israeli standard, and used Facebook to advertise a culinary workshop studio called HaStudio LeBishul. And although we had a strong competition, the only differentiation we had was in our ability to seize the opportunity in advertising on social media and digital channels, resulting in exponential growth and beating of a competition. HaStudio LeBishul became one of the biggest cooking studios in the Middle East, hosting 64,000 participants yearly, sitting on a 1,000 square meters in the heart of Tel Aviv. Nowadays, I would like to see you try and dominate Facebook. Good luck. It will take much more effort than any early days, as competition is more significant. The regulations are more substantial, and the algorithms that provided free exposure are almost gone. Now social advertisement is much more pay-oriented. As I said, right timing is crucial. But timing alone is not enough. Being an early adopter is challenging, as you'll face people who will mock you, who will make you doubt yourself, saying things like, "This idea is childish," and it will never catch on. Usually, society does not widely accept new technological opportunities until their potential is fully proven and realized. But waiting for such validation will make you miss the opportunity. A close miss of mine was in the late 2008. In June 2007, a first smartphone was announced. I immediately was one of the first early adopters. I recognized the potential, imagining the revolution those pocket computers could bring. Today, if you're outside of your home and you want to learn something, you Google it. You find a great video, podcast, article, and you learn about this through your smartphone, which is natural to you. But in 2008, that was not the case. Only 11% of sold phones were smartphones. In late 2010, we had already a working prototype. So we did our best to meet with many company executives of prominent and well-known enterprises. Company after company, we were rejected. We were given so many variations and explanations of why our idea was terrible. I haven't come from money. I'm a child of a single mother immigrant. So early on my entrepreneurial career, there were little room for mistakes and financial experiments. I was encouraged by my family to bet safely. Thus, as our idea got badly rejected, we decided to quit, playing it safe. A little later, a smartphone market exploded big. And today, almost nobody doubts that it's effective to learn through a smartphone. Thinking about this, the internet and the last 3 decades of related technological breakthroughs have changed our lives beyond recognition. It created behaviors that not existed, like online shopping. It created jobs that we could previously not imagine. Social media manager. Who thought it would be a real well-paid job? It created a phenomena of remote working and digital nomads that can work from any place in the world. You probably ask yourself why you should personally care about what I'm saying. To that, I'll answer that I firmly believe that we are on the doorstep of a new immense revolution of the internet, and you can be an early adopter and personally gain from that. Have you heard about the metaverse? The metaverse is a new and upcoming technological revolution that will enable us to experience the internet in a 3D, more engaging way. It holds the promise to change the way we socialize over the internet, consume entertainment, do our work, and much more. At the core of the technology is the new generation of hardware, like augmented reality glasses and virtual reality headsets. Those headsets generate an immersive experience, creating a physical sensation for the user, allowing him to feel like he's inside or a part of that virtual environment, allowing him to experience the internet like never before. Many rich companies and enterprises were inspired by the metaverse. And so on October 28, 2021, Mark Zuckerberg announced the renaming of his company, Facebook, into Meta, and shared a version of his vision for a new chapter of the internet. In his vision, Zuckerberg shared a fantasy world where you can choose to present yourself using a digital sleeve, aka your avatar. In that virtual space, you can socialize with your friends and peers. You can use it for work and set up your virtual station. Or you can meet with your team in a virtual conference room and feel like you are with them in the same space. Alternatively, you can explore remote physical places virtually or venture deep into fantasy worlds. Of course, Zuckerberg's vision is much more extensive, and I encourage you to visit and check it online. Even before Zuckerberg had shared his vision, many entrepreneurs and companies, including myself, had been working on their interpretation of the metaverse in various different industries, like events, entertainment, fashion, art, medical, and much more. I'm a huge fan of augmented reality. These inventions allows you to see a digital enhancement layer on top of a physical one. A cool appliance of such technology would be a GPS-like Waze, but instead of seeing directives over a small screen, you'll be able to see them and instructions and much more additional information directly on the road through the augmented reality glasses. Another fantastic appliance will be in a medical space, allowing surgeons from opposite side of the globe plan an operation virtually, giving them the ability to examine a detailed rendering of a patient's brain within a couple of hours, opposite to the exact consultation taking days in traditional video conferencing. The following example is from my personal experience. In 2020, my partners and I founded a metaverse startup that helped event organizers to host events online in a 3D virtual spaces. It gave them the ability to plan through the uncertainty of COVID pandemic without worrying about the last-minute cancellations. Additional big benefit was the ability to escape a physical space confinement, hosting events with dozens to 100,000 simultaneous attendees. Am I saying this experience is better than face-to-face events, or that virtual events will replace the in-person events? Absolutely not. Humans are social animals, and I will hate to wake up one day and discover we are now all avatars that live in a matrix-like world. I think the metaverse come to upgrade the old way we networked online so far, to make it more vivid and exciting, to make new virtual connections more meaningful and enjoyable. Some of you who have tried various metaverse experiences so far might say that it's not practical, that they don't understand what is the buzz about, and they might be right. The metaverse is still in its infancy and will require a lot of development, both in hardware and software. Look at your smartphone. It hasn't been that smart from the start. The metaverse technologies will too evolve and improve over the next several years. I invite you, the timing is now, and the idea is in front of you. I invite you to become an early adopter of the metaverse and other new technologies. Being an early adopter means trying new technologies before they become mainstream, sticking with the idea in spite of the skeptics, having the willingness and courage to invest your time and money in acquiring new skills and knowledge that will put you ahead of the game. Be the pioneers of the new chapter of the internet. Get on the first train to the metaverse and reap the benefits of being an early adopter, because in 10 years it will be the standard and you will miss this exciting opportunity. Being a skeptic is effortless, easy and safer. And although it is much more challenging, imagine the immense potential benefits of being an early adopter. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Efrat Garber-Aran. Efrat has a BA and MA in Hebrew Literature from Ben-Gurion University. However, after a short career in the fields of NGOs and renewal Judaism, she successfully retrained and became a data scientist. Additionally, she performs as a spoken word poet and also publishes poetry. Please help me welcome Efrat to the stage.
Almost 10 years ago, my partner, Chaim, suddenly changed. From a handsome young man that was full of vitality, he turned into a sad, despondent, sick man that didn't want to live. He stayed in bed for weeks, crying, smoking, keeping the light off, having dark thoughts. It was as if I didn't know him anymore. He was then diagnosed with major depression and started his journey with mental illness. Major depression is nothing like minor or regular depression. If minor depression is a rainy day, then major depression is a hurricane. It's drawing you out of air, light, or the will to live. I was 26 at the time, a mom to a super cute 3-year-old son, and a literature student at university. I had no plans to switch the light off on my life. 10 years has passed since then. 10 years where Chaim went through various types of therapies. Some of them helped, some of them didn't. We had good times and bad times. We have had 2 more super cute kids, and also a few academic degrees. Chaim became a high school teacher and an educator, and I became a data scientist. In those 10 years, Chaim did a brave step that changed the course of his journey, of our journey. I want to tell you about that, but let's start at the beginning. When Chaim was in bed, we really didn't know what to do. But from some reason, it was obvious for both of us. No one can know. We tried to hide his depression by telling everyone he had mano. But this cover story only lasted a few weeks. Then we needed another excuse and another excuse. We also needed to make sure excuses were not getting mixed. I remember once my cousin saw me and she said, "Oh, you don't look really good. Maybe you catched what Chaim had." It took me a few minutes to understand that she's referring to the mano that he never had. For a minute I thought that she's referring to his depression, but how can she know? Because depression can be very contagious. When things started to improve and he went back to work, every time he came back home, He was exhausted and crushed into bed for the rest of the day or the weekend. He spent all his energy pretending everything is fine outside, and found out that no energy was left for us, his family, his kids. But why? Why was it so obvious that we need to keep his depression a secret? I think it's related to shame. In the past, people lived in a lot of closets, ashamed of their sexual identity, their weaknesses. Even physical conditions was something you needed to hide, like cancer or AIDS. We now live in a time where shame is starting to fade away. People starting to understand that they don't need to be ashamed of things they have no responsibility for. There's no reason mental illness should be any different. 7 years ago, 3 years after he was diagnosed, Chaim realized that and did the brave step I mentioned. He decided to go public with his mental ill. He shared a post on social media where he wrote, "I'm a father, a teacher, but I'm also mentally ill. This is who I am. I'm not proud of it, but I think it's time to go out there and breathe, end the denial, end the shame." Chaim's post went viral. Thousands of people shared it, and hundreds of people dealing with mental illness reached out to Chaim, told him how significant his text was, and inspired by that, they finally told their friends and family about their condition and got the help they needed. I cannot even describe how significant it was for us. Breaking the rough division between inside illness, outside functioning, made it possible to redistribute resources and finally deal with the illness itself instead of just hiding it. It was good for all of us, for Chaim, for me, and especially for the kids. Finally, they felt like they got their father back. As I mentioned, Chaim is also a high school teacher, and in his third depressive episode, he didn't come to school for a few months. But his school management did something amazing. They decided to back him up. They hired a replacement and told Chaim more than once that he can come back whenever he'll feel better. Chaim was so lucky to have such a supportive management. But I think his students was even luckier because they got a lesson they will never forget. A lesson about empathy, about vulnerability, a lesson about community and acceptance, and above all, a lesson about not being ashamed of what life gave you. But Chaim wasn't the only one who shared a post on social media. I did too. About what? Well, you probably noticed that I told you Chaim's story, and I talked very little about myself. But I have a story too. It's not only his story, it's also mine. Chaim's depression affected my life in so many ways. I was 26 when it all began, and I had no intention to turn the light off my life. I remember once playing cards with my kid. It was in the middle of Chaim's first depressive episode. The house was a mess. I had so much to do. I was afraid of what might happen to him. There was dishes and laundry and payments, bureaucracy, work. I also needed to make dinner. Thinking about all of that made me cry a bit. But then my son looked at me with his 4-year-old eyes and said, "Mommy, do you have what Dad has now?" It was a frightening moment. I knew that my son needs me strong. I don't have the privilege to be weak. While drying my tears, I told him, "Oh my God, honey, everything's fine. You have nothing to worry about. Mommy's fine. Mommy's okay. Mommy's strong." It was only after I put him to bed when I broke down. That night, I felt lost. I decided to do what every rational person would have done. And I Googled it. My husband is depressed. What should I do? I expected to find blogs, posts, and articles that will help me. Instead, I found blogs, posts, and articles explaining me how I can help him. No one wrote about me. My pain was invisible. My story was not yet written. Usually, when we know someone is coping with an illness, and we see his partner, we ask, hey, how's he doing? But actually, we really need to remember to also ask, hey, how are you doing? Being in the second circle of an old person, meaning taking care of him, and also taking care of everything else, that can be a lot. Add to that the fear, the loneliness, and the constant feel of guilty for not doing enough. When it comes to mental illness, it could be even harder, because your partner is just not there to support nor to be grateful for everything you're doing for him. It's like he lives in his own world. I was lucky enough to have a partner that understood that my story is mine and it matters. He gave me the space to tell it, and actually this is what I'm doing right here, right now. I'm telling you my story with Chaim's full support, because we both believe that sharing our stories can help others that feel the same, to feel seen, to know that they are not alone. And actually, it's not only my story. We will all find ourselves supporting someone else in our lives. We will all find ourselves in some point supporting someone else. It can be supporting our older parents, or a husband support his wife after she gave birth. In that moment, we have an instinct to say, it's not about me, it's about them. But I'm here to tell you what I wish someone had told me 10 years ago. You have a story too. Your story matters. When I wanted to tell my story and share it with the world, I used spoken word. I told you I'm a data scientist. It's true, but I didn't forget about my literature degree. The poem will be in Hebrew, and its title is I'm afraid it'll come back. אני פוחדת שזה יחזור. פחד מוות אני פוחדת, ששוב יכבה בעיניו האור. רק מלחשוב על זה אני רועדת. אנחנו עכשיו במקום טוב, ממש, ואין איזו סיבה קונקרטית לחשש, אבל אני פוחדת שזה יחזור. בכל בוקר מחדש. לחתולים יש 9 נשמות, לכולנו זה ברור, בסליחה על האוף טופיק, תכף תראו איך זה קשור. מי שלא יודע את זה הם החתולים עצמם, וכך יום אחד הם מתים, ולתדהמתם. הם עדיין חיים, ויש להם עוד הזדמנות לילל, אז הם חוזרים שוב להתקרבל ולהשתולל, הם קופצים מבניינים ונוחתים על הרגליים ושמחים לגלות שהם חיים לבינתיים. ובפעם השלישית, כשהעיניים נפקחות, הם שוב רואים שהם חיים, והגפיים נמתחות, אבל יש להם רק 9 נשמות. וכך בפעם השמינית, הם לא יודעים שזה הסוף, שהמוות אמיתי, הם צוללים אל מותם בלי להתרגש. וכמה נשמות לי יש? הפעם הראשונה הייתה לפני כמעט עשור. לא ידענו אם ואיך זה יעבור, זה היה מפחיד נורא. אבל עמדנו בזה, בגבורה, עם טיפול וגם תרופות, האור חזר לעיניו היפות. אחרי כמה חודשים ישבנו לדבר, הרגשנו איך הכל מסתדר, הדיכאון מאחורינו והכל בסדר עכשיו, והנה הקיץ ועוד מעט כבר סתיו, ואפשר להתקרבל מתחת לפוך עם מרק פטריות, ולצחוק ולבכות על איך ניצחנו את הדיכאון והמשכנו לחיות. כמה חודשים אחרי שנכנסתי להיריון, הוא חזר, הדיכאון, וגוש דמעות תקוע בגרון, בתוכי נובטים חיים חדשים, ועל ידי חיים נובלים וכמשים, ושוב תרופות, ושוב טיפול, ושוב דמעות, ושוב תסכול. זה יעבור, זה יסתדר, אנחנו נצליח להתאושש. לחתול יש 9 נשמות, אבל כמה לי יש? ויום ועוד יום עובר, ודברים מתחילים להתבהר, ואפשר להירגע ולהניח ראש על ירך, להאמין שזה נגמר, ושוב לצאת לדרך, וזה באמת נגמר. אבל חוזר, בפעם השלישית שהיא הכי קשה, וכבר נדמה שהיא סופית, ואני כבר עם 3 אך מרגישה כמו חד-הורית, וכל לילה רק אני עם הדמעות על הכרית. אבל טיפול חדש נולד, ושוב זה איכשהו נגמר. והפעם זה מדהים, האור ממש חזר, ואנחנו במקום טוב עכשיו, ממש, ואין איזו סיבה קונקרטית לחשש, אבל אני פוחדת שזה יחזור בכל בוקר מחדש, ושואלת את עצמי בלי להתבייש, לחתול יש 9 נשמות. כמה לי יש? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Angelika Kalol-Livne. Through performing arts, Dr. Angelika Kalol-Livne is an advocate of peace for students from different backgrounds. She comes from Kibbutz Sasa, and in 2002, Angelika created the Arcobaleno Rainbow Theater, designing for making young Jews, Arabs, Christians, Muslims, and Druze connect through stage performance. In 2005, Angelika was candidated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Dr. Kalol-Livne, the stage is yours.
All my life, I wanted to bring people together, to connect them. I remember this feeling from my very young age. I grew up in a stormy, passionate Italian family where shouting was normal. Ma perché avete messo la pasta già? Avevamo detto di aspettare, ma i bambini avevano fame. I remember the yelling, and I see myself calming everyone down and performing skits to show the adults how they look like, to make them laugh and help them to reconcile. This became my mission in the life, to connect people through the performing arts. In the year 2000, a wave of terror washed over the Middle East. The Italian Jewish community invited me to bring 50 Israeli children to an enchanting forest retreat. They were wounded by the terrorist attacks. It was to cheer them up. Each of the children had painful stories, full of sorrow and pain. And some of them no longer believed in mankind. Among them was Renana, a gentle girl who survived a deadly attack. Her body full of shrapnel. Once she was asked if she ate the terrorist who killed the best friends, she told, I was a ballet dancer and I played the flute. I can no longer play or dance, but if I live with hatred, I cannot survive. Renana's words touched my heart, and when I came back to Israel after this experience, I felt that I must do something to bring hope, to bring people together. And at the peak of the wave of terror, I decided to create a theater with Jewish and Arab. I was teaching theater in many schools, so I invited some of my students to join me. And now I have to find the Muslims, the Christians, the Druze, and the Circassian from my area. One day, I met Sharif, a charming young man who worked as a cook. Sharif you will be my first Arab actor in the theater. No way, I've never acted before. Oh, don't worry, everyone can act. And I insisted, and Sharif eventually joined the theater with some friends and cousins from the village. And we began. What's happened in the meetings was a kind of small miracle. Thanks to the music, to the moments, to the non-judgmental atmosphere, everyone felt free and safe. The theater games gave the courage and created intimacy. In the circle, face to face, they explained about the name, how their name affected their life, what values they brought from home, and which stories they heard as children. And then soon became friends and were very, very happy to come every week and to meet each other. But something terrible happened. One of the girls, More, went on vacation with her family to Kenya in Africa with a group of Israelis. When they entered the beautiful hotel in the jungle, a terrorist exploded himself in the lobby. When More came back to Israel, she called me and screamed, "I'm done with the theater. I hate all the Arabs. They came to look for us and to kill us 5,000 kilometers away from home." I tried to convince her that the kids of the theater are loving and peaceful young people, but More was too hard to her to listen. I asked her to come one last time to say goodbye to all the group. "Okay, I'll come, but I'll sit alone out of the circle." It was a difficult moment. People was afraid to get out from the house because we had terrorist attacks every day, everywhere. I asked the kids to imagine that they are locked in a box, trying to get out. I put on music, and in slow motion, they perform and express the frustrations of those days. More watched from the side, silently, in her pain. At the end, I asked who want to go on the stage and do a monologue about what they feel right now. The first one that came up was Sharif, and he said, "What you think? Because I am an Arab, I am not afraid. Terror and violence are terrible for all of us." And one by one, all the children shared their feelings. More asked to speak. And in one breath, she told us about the horrible moments in Kenya, about the screams, the crying, the blood, the glass everywhere. And in the end of the stories, she was exhausted, the eyes wide open. Sharif stood up and asked her, "More, can I hug you?" And everyone, all the kids, one by one, joined the big group hug around her. More stayed in the theater, and the improvisations about the fear, the hope, the war gave life to a performance of dance theater called Bereshit, Genesis. The theater was invited to all over Italy to perform, and the show became a message of hope and peace. The kids became like sisters and brothers, and the bond became stronger and stronger. It was like a dream come true, but from the local council called me to the office. We are sorry, but we can no longer finance the theater. I drove home, my eyes full of tears. Why, God? Why do you give a gift and do you take it back? What do I tell the children now? Where can I find the financing? I got home discouraged, and suddenly a phone call from Italy. It's Dr. Kalolivne. Yes, who is this? Are you the director of a multicultural theater from Galilee? I was, until half an hour ago. What do you mean? What's happened? It's over. Finish. Look, I'm calling you from the Vatican. This is a financial problem. What do you need? I need 5,000 euros. Oh, great. I'm calling you because you are going to receive 5,000 euro, a prize for your educational work for peace in Assisi, the city of St. Francis. I thought that someone of my family in Italy is playing a prank on me. Are you real? Are you an angel? No, I am a priest. I hang up the phone and slowly, and I looked up and I said, my God, you are fast. I felt that I got a sign, that I have gone on, and I had the courage to found Bereshit LaShalom, a Genesis for Peace foundation to bring people together through the performing arts. And from that moment on, an avalanche of activity for peace came to life. I connected groups of Israeli, Jordanian, and Palestinian young people. I was invited all over the world to explain how to bring together different cultures and to deliver the message. The young people from the theater became ambassadors for peace. Today, more than ever, I know that the passionate spirit of my family is my strength, which helped me follow my inner voice to connect people and inspire hope wherever I can. And to do that, I need the will, the innocence, and the vision of a little child, like Renana, Mor, Sharif, and many, many more who joined me in my journey. Thank you.
We are now reaching the end of the event, and it is time for us to introduce the last speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Maor Farid. Dr. Farid is the founder and CEO of Learn to Succeed and co-founder at Datability. He is an AI and chaos theory scientist at the Technion and MIT, and was Israel's representative at the Harvard Leadership Program. Dr. Farid is a member of the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. It is an honor for me to invite Dr. Farid on the stage.
Our lives are full of chaos. We don't know what the next pandemic is gonna hit or if we will lose our job tomorrow. We all hate it. We want to plan our future, to control our fate. But what if I told you that chaos could also be a driving force? Today I'm about to tell you how I turned chaos into my secret weapon, my profession, and my best friend. I was always labeled the fat kid in class. In fact, I was so fat, nothing fit me in the kids department, and I used to get my 20-year-old cousin second-hand clothes. Being fat is not easy, especially during recess, when the bullies would beat me up and the girls would laugh at me, or even worse, take pity on me. I absolutely hated school, and I didn't really know why it was important. I didn't have any adult figure back then to explain to me its importance. My parents are amazing people, but they grew up in refugee camps with no formal education. As a fat kid, I realized that the only way to survive was to fight back. Obviously, I was afraid, but it was the only defense mechanism I had. So I started beating up kids that were younger and weaker than me, until I gained a name for myself as someone not to mess with. Even in the world of bullies, there were two clear rules in our neighborhood. The first, don't punch in the face. The second, there are no other rules. From the moment I became a bully, life at school definitely got easier. I also gained more confidence in the classroom. I became addicted to the adrenaline rush every time the teachers yelled at me, which made the kids in my class laugh all the time. One day I was sitting in the back of the classroom, like every day, when the teacher banged her fist on my table for the millionth time. I could see her angry eyes. Maori, you're disturbing the class again. Go to the principal's office. I went out to the sound of the students' laughter, but this time I could hear the teacher walking behind me. She grabbed my face with her hand, holding tightly onto my cheeks. But this time she didn't shout. She whispered, with the softest, almost motherly voice. I promise you, Maor, and remember what I'm about to tell you right now. You will never make anything of yourself. My heart was pounding and I didn't know what to do with all this rage and fear, but I knew that the answer lay with one man, the wisest man I knew, my father. I barely saw him as a child. He would leave for work before I woke up and come back home after I'd fallen asleep. But this time, the rage inside me didn't let me go to sleep. So I decided to stay awake until he would come back home. Suddenly, I woke up in the living room to the sound of the front door opening. And there he was. My father like I've never seen him before. Exhausted beyond belief. I've never seen my father cry until now. He looked at me, walked towards me, and put his hands on my shoulders. The words that he told me that night have never left me. In fact, they still echo in my head every time that I walk in the corridors of MIT, Harvard, or the Israeli Defense Forces. He told me, study, son. Study, so you won't end up like me. At that moment, something in me shifted. At the first time in my life, I had a clear vision of what I would like to accomplish in the future. I've never cared about my studies, but now I did. I realized that if I would study harder, my father would be happy, and I will be able to see him more. So I started to study like my life depended on it, even though every cell in my body screamed I can't. Only a decade later, I realized that those screaming cells had a name, ADHD. Even though I started to do better in school, I felt as if there was a ticking time bomb of chaos that lived inside of me, and it's only a matter of time before it would explode. One day at school, I got smacked on the shoulder. I turned around and saw Dan, a kid from my class. The next thing I remember, Dan was lying on the sidewalk, and his whole face was full of blood. I realized that the ticking time bomb of chaos inside me had erupted again, and I broke my neighborhood's only sacred rule: no punching in the face. I ran home in a panic and locked myself in the house. My little brother and sister were playing in the living room, and I prayed to God that everything is gonna be okay. After a few minutes, I heard these loud knocks on the door. It definitely wasn't my parents. They wouldn't be back for hours. I looked through the people, and my heart began to beat like crazy. 3 armed police officers. They yelled at me to open the door. I realized that I had no choice. I looked at my brother and sister and smiled to them, and wordlessly told them that everything is gonna be okay. And I opened the door. The building where we lived at the time had a communal parking lot where all the neighbors could see everything that was going on. When the policemen put me in the car, I felt as if all their eyes are on me, and I was burning inside with shame. In the police station, the officer described in detail how she plans not only to file a police report on me, but to destroy my entire future. She've heard everything about me from my teachers and my principal, and I begged her for hours to give me one last chance. After 3 hours or so, she came back with a piece of paper in her hand and put it on the table in front of me. "Get out of here," was all she told me. I looked at the paper and saw this was my last report card, and I realized that my good grades saved the day. When I left the police station, the one man waiting for me was my father. My father is not a man of many words, but he didn't need any words this time. The way that he looked at me and hugged me said it all. In those few hours in the police station, I've learned the most important lesson of all. The lessons that I've never learned at MIT, Harvard, or the Technion. I got a small glimpse into the future of a person that I never wanted to be. I realized that if I wouldn't take control of my inner chaos, it would control me. After those few hours in the police station, I made 2 major decisions that changed the course of my life ever since. The first was to become a doctor. Frankly, I didn't really know what it meant to be a doctor, but I realized that if you study really, really hard, you become one. Only 7 years after this day in the police station, I was the youngest PhD graduate at the Technion, Israel's Institute of Technology. At the day that I received my master's degree, my entire family came to witness the ceremony. The thing that I remembered the most was the smell of my mother's cooking filling in the car. Chaim kubbe, all traditional Jewish Iraqi food that my mother prepared for the event. On our ride there, I approached my father with an unusual request. I asked him if he would honor me by accepting my degree on my behalf. When the name Maor Farid was called, there he was. In cap and gown, walking proudly on the stage.
זה לא מאור. אבא של מאור. מאור כבר שוקד על לימודי הדוקטורט שלו.
After all I've been putting him through, I believe that this moment of glory truly belongs to him. The second decision I've made back in the police station was to do everything in my power to make sure that other teenagers don't go through what I went through. To teach them how to control their inner chaos before it controls them. Therefore, I established the Learn to Succeed program, the first program of excellence for youth from lower socioeconomic backgrounds that enrolls more than 5,000 Jewish and Arab youth from the entire country. We teach them how to find their deepest dream, how to make a plan and turn it into reality step by step, side by side. So, why did I choose to study? Well, my entire life I was trying to control my inner chaos, so quite unsurprisingly, for my PhD thesis, I chose to explore chaos and how to control it. The scientific field called chaos theory is actually the field that studies all phenomena that cannot be predicted. Even with the most sophisticated microscopes and computers, we will never be able to predict it, such as the spread of epidemics, climate change, global economy, and even human behavior. It's the messiest branch of science, the most disorganized, the most problematic, even violent. In the study of chaos, we don't try to make order in the world or prevent chaos. We try to understand it better, prepare for it, and deal with it when it arrives. For my PhD thesis, I chose to explore the response of nuclear reactors to earthquakes. Chaos within chaos, you might say. In our lab at the Technion, we developed a technology called chaotic energy sinks. Devices that are mounted on sensitive structures, such as nuclear reactors, and protecting them from environmental chaos, such as earthquakes. When chaos attacks the system, the chaotic energy sink goes into action, raging chaotically, and by that canceling the chaos in the sensitive structure and saving it from collapse. We do not try to prevent chaos. We absolutely can't. We create our own chaos to cancel the inevitable chaos and defeat it. And this is how we harness the power of chaos for saving the lives of millions of people around the world. After studying chaos theory for over 10 years now, these are the main lessons that I've learned. The first is to plan with no fear. The world around us is full of chaos, and always will be. A jungle of uncertainty that we will never be able to predict or beat. Don't be afraid of the unexpected. Make a plan, but don't fall in love with it. Maybe something better is already planned for you. The second, target bad chaos into positive goals. You lost your job today? Congratulations, start a startup that you always dreamed of. Chaos forces us to leave our comfort zone and do things that we never dared to do. Think of it as the friend that makes the hard decisions for you and pushes you towards your next greater challenge. The third, choose to be positive. You missed the bus today? Mazel tov. Maybe you'll meet the love of your life today at the bus station. Look, it doesn't matter what chaos you are dealing with in your own personal life, at home, at work, in your relationships, and it doesn't matter where you came from. Chaos can go both ways. Even successes and good things can be unexpected. The chaos inside me has never left me, but today I no longer want it to go away. I learned to embrace it and even to love it, and I invite you to do the same. Let chaos make its mess and let it take you exactly where you didn't plan to go. Thank you.
This was our last talk for today, but the experience doesn't end here. Feel free to continue networking in the metaverse and connect through ideas. After the event, you'll be able to rewatch the talks on our YouTube channel and share it with the world. Thank you for having joined us. See you at the next event.